This is Theron from Bricks and Flicks. This is Shark Week while we are recording this. So, what better movie to take care of than Jaws? We have the 1975 movie and the 1974 novel. We will be discussing bits and pieces of both. So, we got the movie, and for the Lego, I'm going to be creating the Lego Creator Deep Sea Creatures, number 31088. So nice large shark in there. As well as I created the three main characters from um, from the movie, showing my guests. We have Hooper and Brody and Quint. So, not sure why it's not focusing all that well, but I'll get to that later. So, I've got two guests with me tonight. I've got Dizzy Thinque, my dad, and I have Jen, my wife. She is a huge Jaws fan, so she'll be adding in quite a lot of information for us as we go along. And Dad and I have recently read the book as well, so we will see what we see. Uh, well, let's see. Jen, do you have anything to say about Jaws in general before we start?
Um, it is my third favorite movie of all time, so I have seen it probably 100 times at least. It was on Total Film's greatest movie list, coming in at number 3. And out of AFI's, the American Film Institute, their 100 thrills, it came in second, mostly after Psycho. So it stood the test of time over the years for me.
And as well as apparently for AFI and other lists.
Yeah, AFI, it did drop down to 48. It was in the top 5 for quite a while, and it's dropped. But in their overall, 48 for thrillers.
It may have been the Film Institute. I forgot which one I saw it on, but they said that Quint was in the top 10 characters ever portrayed on the screen.
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Dad, do you have anything to say about Jaws before we start?
I guess only the same preamble that I pretty much have most of the time because of my working in Syracuse and so on, those kind of things. Most of the time I read the book before I ever saw the movie. And in this case, that's what I did when I set up for this. I reread the book first, then I watched the movie again. So did that
change the way you thought about the movie from what you remember?
Well, it made me think more what Hollywood wanted to do with the script, because Benchley, it seems, didn't make so much of the shark until the shark shows up. Most of it would involve some of the silliness of the village hierarchy and so on, and there was more descriptive stuff about them than there was about the shark. It was interesting to see how the movie used what Benchley said the shark characteristics were and what the movie made of them. So what is going on now?
I just have a little problem here. Here we go. We seem to be plagued by some technical difficulties tonight.
There's sharks in the water.
Yeah. All right. Well, um, I don't know how I feel between the two of them as to which one I like better. There is a lot more characterization and a lot more interaction as there would be in a book. And as far as the movie went, it was just a straight action movie from A to B to C, and so I see them actually as two different entities altogether. It's almost like they don't exist in the same realm. Um, so I think the movie is fine for what it does. It does a better job of the horror that is unseen than a lot of movies do nowadays. So I quite enjoy the fact that you couldn't see the shark until about almost an hour into the movie. Actually, it's the first time you can see him. So, all right. Well, let's start off here. I got to bring up I got a timeline for us. All right. So we open up to credits underwater. As the camera moves along the bottom, we have John Williams music, dum dum dum, as the credits pop up, and we sort of make our way through the bottom. Uh, what rocks, reefs, and flora. So then it cuts to a nighttime beach party around a fire where we have a drunken young man named Tom, where he hooks up and chases after a giggling young woman named Chrissy. And he drunkenly says to her, "Where are we going?" And Jen, what was the answer?
Swimming!
Swimming! Yay!
Swimming! Yay!
So he passes out on the beach. He gets undressed and jumps into the water, and we then have a scene that is the first scene of the that makes an impact in both the book and the movie. She gets bumped when she's in the water, and in the book it explains it quite well. Dad, do you remember how that was explained, or do you want me to continue?
Well, I think depends on what you know of the shark's reason for swimming the way he does.
Well,
It doesn't, according to Benchley, he doesn't always know that it's food,
Mm-hmm.
and he has to swim constantly in order to be able to survive because he has no flotation device in his body like other fish do. If he stops swimming, he'll float to the bottom. So when he comes by something, he may pass it without realizing what it was and go back for another pass. And apparently, bumping her said that she was in the category of maybe this is food. And he came back for another swing. And that's when we see that he gives it a open mouth charge just to suck in whatever it is that he thinks he's in front of or coming at.
so he explains in the book that she reaches down because she felt something touch her foot, and she reaches down and she doesn't find a foot, and comes up and finds sort of a fleshy stump, a bit of flesh, bit of bone, and that's what really scares her, as I imagine it would scare anybody. This brings me to one thing that I think would be really fun to do, and I think Jen would probably agree. Sitting in the ocean watching Jaws being displayed on a beach at night.
They do that in a lake. I don't know where it is.
Is it a lake?
Yeah, there's like a big pond or a lake, and they have people like sitting in floaties, and it's on a big projector, and you're just in the water with your little floaty.
Now, if they had somebody underneath the water just poking your your flotation devices every now and then. I wouldn't necessarily say touching the people would be smart because you might get a mouthful of foot or broken teeth by the time you're done. But I think kind of poking at the bottom of the flotation devices might be kind of fun.
I would totally do it.
So
Watch
the
the
book
movie.
was pretty close to this. It started out in a house, and she and the guy go out to the beach for a swim, and he again passes out. So it's pretty close. The difference really comes down to the timing as to when this all happens versus July 4th. And in the book, it happens about a couple of weeks ahead of time, maybe as much as a month. I'm not positive on the dates on that. But so when when she gets bumped, she obviously is not. She's pretty surprised by it. Then all of a sudden she gets grabbed, and then we play tug of war. They apparently achieved this by having her on a harness and having her dragged back and forth under the water until
And
she.
the initial tug was Spielberg, and he didn't tell her when she was going to do it. So when she gets pulled under the first time, she's really surprised because she didn't know when it was coming.
Well,
But it was Spielberg on the ocean floor doing the first tug. And then there were people on the beach going back and forth to make her go back and forth.
so would you say he's a method director?
Well, it was probably cheap. I'll just do it myself.
That's probably true.
At a very low budget.
All right, so the shark attack scene, she's screaming. Her possible boyfriend, at least the suitor of the moment, is passed out on the beach going, "I'm okay, I'm not drunk." And she gets pulled under. So then the next scene, do you guys have anything to say about the attack scene or no? Anything more than what we've said?
No.
I guess the thing that amazes me is that people still swim in the ocean. If they just in the middle of nowhere, thinking that I'm okay, and then a shark from out of nowhere comes along and says, "Oh no, you're not." Now, how does the next guy know where the shark's going to be? Even if you got a guy up in a big seat observing with his magnifying devices to see whether anything is present in the water, sharks don't have to surface in order to attack, so I don't know what he could see. I guess I'd be more inclined to swim in a swimming pool at the ocean rather than out in the ocean itself if I knew there were sharks frequenting the area. Yeah. So it convinced me that the mayor probably had a good reason for not wanting to scare the public, but sure had its way of doing it.
Yeah. Jen, Morgan says hi. She says, "I see you, Jen."
Hi, Morgan.
All right. If you have any questions, Morgan, or if you want to enter any information, or just say something about a particular scene, go ahead and type it in. Anybody that's actually watching, feel free to type in anything you want, and as soon as I see it, I will mention it. All right. So the very next scene is sort of blurry, and you kind of hear and see the back of a blurry man, a blurry back of the man's head as he stretches listening to the radio as it pans back to him. It says, local fishing reported good. Amity boat rental yards opening early to prepare for the annual seasonal rush. So in the first conversation we have between Brody and his wife, we find out that they just bought a house in the fall, and it's now summer. He was complaining that there was a sunlight coming in. He was, how come the sun wasn't there when we bought the house? And she said, because we bought it in the fall, now it's summer. So they're from New York City. We find that out. They have dogs, kids, and the wife calls him Chief.
And the
So,
dogs that are in the movie are actually Spielberg's dogs.
well, uh, is Pippet the actual dog's name, or
It
is that
said
just the
Brody's dogs. So the Cocker
Brody's dog's
Spaniels.
names, not the
Yeah.
one that goes in the water later?
Not that I'm aware of, but I know Brody's dogs are actually Spielberg's dogs.
All right. Uh, they have a bit of a back and forth about the kids, about a swing set, and one of the kids gets cut on his hand, and then Jen mentioned something that she thought was rather funny when Brody and Ellen go out outside and the kid's out there. She hops onto the swing set as well, which made Jen kind of wonder what the hell.
Yeah.
Weren't
He's
they
like,
just
don't play
saying
on
it's
those. It's not safe, but he's going to let. It's all right for the wife to go out and play on it.
So he gets into the truck that says Amityville Police Department on the side, and he's heading out on a missing persons call because he gets a phone call when he's talking to his wife. So the billboard he drives past says Amity Island welcomes you, and then it says 50th Annual Regatta, July 4th to 10th. So we learned quite a lot about Brody at this time, which is quite a bit different from the book, actually. We find out Brody's only been there for less than a year, or maybe a year already, gone through one season. Not
They said
quite
it's his
sure.
first summer.
Is it his first summer? Okay, so he's been there for less than a year. He is from New York. He's what 5'9", 5'10", slight build. Roy Scheider is. He's let me see, from New York City. Did I already say that? In the book, he's actually about 41 years old, which is probably about same as Roy Scheider, but who knows? With his leathery skin and the way he barely ages, like George Hamilton, you can't really tell what age he is. But he was actually he met his wife when he was 6 years already in the police force on Amity, and his aspiration was to become the chief. So I thought that was interesting because now they're taking him from being an islander to being completely out of his element for the island. I'm not quite sure why they would have done that. Was there any notes on that in anything you read, Jen?
No.
Anything you read, Dad, about that?
Don't think so. Don't think so.
So I was surprised that they did that. I'm not quite sure why, but so he's 41 years old in the book. He's 6'1", 200 pounds. Everybody seems to be quite tall in this, in the book. Ellen's 36. She looks like she's in her early 30s, and they actually met when she was 21 and he was about 26, and he pulled over her date while driving drunk when she was vacationing on Amity, because she's from a rich family. And she's not from a rich family in the movie. So it's just strange that they went this direction. I don't know if they were just trying to get away from all of the story element or not, but still interesting to see the differences between it. Let's see. So
You got to remember, he wrote both. He had help, but he wrote the screenplay as well as the book. So the influence of changing some of those things
might have been
was
his own.
probably from.
Yeah, he wrote three drafts of it before Spielberg got a chance at it, and then what was his name? George? Jen?
Carl Gottlieb.
Carl Gottlieb. And also Carl added a lot of ad-libbing and characterization on the spot. Let's see. So the next scene is he gets to the beach, and the guy that passed out on the ground is leading Brody along the beach, trying to explain what happened and how he might have lost her, doesn't know where she went, doesn't know if she just got swept out into the sea or what happened. And they end up hearing a whistle from Brody's deputy named Hendrickson. Is that what it was? Hendrickson. I think it was Hendrickson, wasn't it, Dad?
Yes, I think.
Len Hendrickson.
I think so.
Yeah.
And he blows a whistle and then throws up. So we know that something's coming. We know that something's not right. Brody goes running along and ends up coming to the bluff, the sand dune that has an interesting hand, just a hand covered in crabs. Jen, what about that hand?
At first, they had like a mannequin hand, and Spielberg didn't like the look of it because you could tell it was shiny, it was plastic, it just looked super fake. So they buried an actual cast or crew member's hand in the sand, just having her hand pop up, and then the crabs were crawling on it, but very, very slowly. So the prop guy poured hot coffee over the crabs to get them to move faster, so it looked creepier. Which I'm sure PETA nowadays would be like, you can't pour hot coffee on a crab.
You can't do that.
I bet they tasted really good after they ate them.
I'm sure it was amazing. So,
Coffee
real hand,
marinade.
real crab, real coffee.
All right. So he just about loses his lunch, as his deputy did. Next scene we have is in the police station, and you got the kid holding on to some drink, presumably
Alka-Seltzer, I was thinking. 'Cause he's
Alka-Seltzer.
probably-
It's kind of milky, so Jen was thinking Alka-Seltzer to keep the kid from yuking too badly. And it sort of follows the secretary into the room as she's talking about normal everyday business, and Brody is sitting there typing out the incident report and types in shark attack. This is where he gets a phone call from the medical examiner. In the book, his name's Carl Santos, and basically says it's a shark, a big bastard too. Even the screw in an ocean liner wouldn't have done this. So immediately you understand that this wasn't something that could have been an accident. It had to have been a big shark, unless for some reason the coroner had actually said somebody had wanted to dismember her, like a serial killer or something like that. And Brody's like, well, that's not really likely. So he says, okay, then it's a big damn shark. So Brody's all about closing all the beaches down, and he rushes out of the building, goes to the hardware store. Meanwhile, everybody's trying to attack him to try to get him to fix whatever problems they have going on at the moment. He seems to be the only one that anybody goes to get their problems fixed. Goes into the hardware store, grabs some paintbrushes that are like this thin, not big paintbrushes at all, and grabs some wood and paint and walks out the door wanting to close the beaches. So I don't know. Do you have anything to add about this, Jen or Dad?
I just thought it was interesting that this is really early in the morning because Polly was just getting into the office. And he walks out of the hardware store and there's a parade going down the street and there's just people all over the village at that early in the morning on it. Like it just seems like it was this sleepy little town, but there's an awful lot of activity first thing in the morning.
Yeah, because he was actually woken up. Well, he was woken up by the sun, but it was obviously quite early when he got the phone call. It was very early when they were walking on the beach to go look at the body, and now you got the coroner already saying that he thinks it's a shark attack. Now the book makes this a little better. It seems like it's a day or two, going on at the time that these things are happening, and the movie seems to plow through like it's all happening just like that.
Yeah.
The only thing about the movie I think that that gets me is just the timing in the beginning here. It makes no sense, but like Spielberg said, he just wanted to have an action movie straight through, and the best way to do that is just to keep everything moving. Yeah, whatever. So he gives the paintbrushes and the signs to his deputy, and he rushes off because his deputy tells him that the Boy Scouts are having a swim, some sort of swim event going on. So he's got to rush off to go stop them and get them back into shore. So he gets to the ferry. Now, he doesn't like water. We do find that out. He's not a fan of water, doesn't like boats. So the guy on the ferry, he waits for the ferry to come up, and as he walks on, he says, "Take me over to these guys so I can talk to them." And following close behind is the mayor, Larry Vaughn, the editor of the newspaper. In the movie, it's the Gazette. In the book, I believe it was the leader. His name's Harry Meadows. And then you have the deputy and the coroner, medical examiner, and two people who you assume are city council members. In the book, they're called the selectmen. So they basically come up to Brody as he's looking the other way. They pull up behind him. They get out of the car and they're like, "You can't close the beach. You can't close the beach." So, Dad, I thought they did a pretty good job of quickly getting some information out there, but the book does a much better job of why the why it's bad for everybody that the beach would close. Do you have any input on that? As far as I know that you liked the characterization and the background and everything else from that. Do you have anything maybe to add on that?
Well, I think that it seemed like the the town authorities were all interested in keeping the beach open because they were close to shutting down economically as an entity. So summer and that beach time was what was going to make their livelihood last for another season, because if they didn't have a good summer, they may not survive until the next year. The whole of the town seemed to be bent on tourist money being the thing that would keep them from collapsing altogether. So that the town became an entity in the book that you had to be concerned about. And you watch the depth of the concern for that situation come out of the selectmen, who all stood kind of nodding their head to whatever the mayor wanted to say about not closing it because, after all, we all know what happens if nobody can get in here. They're not going to spend any money here. So the town becomes more than just a beach site. There is reason for the creation of the tension between Brody, who wants to save people's hide from something he isn't quite sure is going to go on down the shoreline, and the mayor, who says, well, he's already gone. He wouldn't have, we'd know him if he's still here, which was silly. So they were concerned really loudly in the book for the fact that the town could collapse if we don't have a good summer.
Well, that part of it was interesting because the first person that Brody goes to in the book is actually the editor, Harry Meadows, described as late 40s, chain smoking, cheap cigar, drinks bonded bourbon, an immense man who enjoys food, and it's almost as I think this was an interesting line. He says, "For whom the act of drawing breath was an exertion enough to cause perspiration to dot his forehead." It's a interesting line that Benchley had in there.
Yeah.
So,
Paints a picture.
what's that?
So that paints a picture.
Yeah. So Brody has a relationship already with Meadows, kind of a give-take relationship. When somebody from outside of town, like a summer person or a group of summer kids, gets in trouble, he would give all the information to the editor to spread as much as he wanted, all the information out there to publish. But whenever it was somebody that was local to Amity, he would the editor would just make sure it was like a small paragraph with very little details, and Brody would never give him all that much information. So really, they were okay with him having a story, just didn't want to ruin the reputation of the locals, or broadcast that anything special was going on. So Harry, after hearing that that there was a shark attack, had talked to Santos, the coroner, and had already found out there was a shark attack. And he gets a hold of an oceanographer named, or an ichthyologist, I should say, from the Oceanographic Institute, named Matt Hooper. So this was where Matt gets introduced in the book, because Matt said that it was likely an isolated incident, and the chance to repeat an attack of a shark in Amity's waters, since it's getting warmer for the summer. There's no reefs, there's no fish processing plants, or slaughterhouse dumping blood and guts into the water. So he said the chance of a repeat attack is pretty non-existent. So that was another piece of ammunition that they had against Brody then, to not close the beaches, was, hey, we have an expert that says this was a remote attack. It's not likely it's ever going to happen again. And then you have the mayor on top of that, doing pretty much the same thing. He was described as a early 50s salt and pepper trim, because of exercise. And he's also described as Brody's friend, which is quite different from the movie, because the movie's mayor seems to steamroller over him more than have any kind of a good relationship with him. But Vaughn in the book is also the owner, with silent partners, of Vaughn and Penrose Real Estate, which makes for part of the conflict as to why he doesn't want the beaches closed. So, so we've got this this interaction now on the ferry, and he says, are you sure? Because this is a shark attack. This is what the coroner said. And the coroner standing right behind him, the medical examiner right behind him, it says, no, it's possible. Maybe it wasn't a shark attack. All right. So I can hold you to that, right? Because I don't know. If I was Brody, I'd be pretty worried as to, what do you do? How do you justify opening up a beach again? And if somebody does die, it's all on you. So
That was something that I thought about when they were saying, a girl swims out too far, she tires, a fishing boat comes along. It's happened before. Well, has it really happened before? Or was it a shark attack that was covered up as a boating accident before? Like, if they're willing to do it this time to save some money and their livelihood, how many shark attacks were not listed as real shark attacks?
that's a good point.
The book says there are a few of them that have happened. They get reported, but they're in a different place than Amity, so that the newspaper reports could carry a minimal amount of information. It says, yeah, there are sharks out there,
Mm-hmm.
and it backs up the fact that it could have been. But the way I responded to that particular thing about the girl is, well, you could make up anything for that. If she's out there swimming too young, she may have just drowned and got taken out by riptide.
Mm-hmm.
So, they don't want a shark on their beach,
Right.
either in black and white print or in reality. And the problem was the guys who were trying to sustain Amity's summer crowd coming there aren't thinking too strongly about what kind of a risk is there to anybody that's swimming with sharks. They find out.
Yeah.
There's no risk. There's no risk at all.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Let's see what I got here in the notes. So Hooper, through Harry. Okay, I already said that. Non-existent. So the next thing, they're not quite open to the public for its summer activities yet for the 4th of July, but there is some swimming going on. And the next scene is all of the, just about everybody's on the beach, including Brody, sitting in his short-sleeved shirt and watching safely from the sand, but ever vigilant, his eyes on the water, trying to see what's out there. And it's interesting camera work going on with you have him focusing so intently on the water line, and yet there's people walking in front of him, and then you see looking back at him from the water as those people are walking back and forth. So you see the two directions as if what you're seeing is at the same time. So as a person walks in front of him this way, it shows you the other camera, and the person's walking the other way. So you get a sense of the immediacy of everything that Brody's feeling as he's watching some lady out floating, and he sees something behind her, and then it goes underneath and comes back up on the other side, and it's Bad
Harry.
Hat Harry. Yeah. So this is where there's a dog playing on the beach named Pippet, and then there's Alex Kintner, who comes up to his mom and says, "I'm not ready to come in yet. Can I go back out?" She looks at his pruny fingers and says, "All right." So he says, "Just 10 more minutes, 10 more minutes." And he goes and grabs his raft and heads back out into the water. Now, there's a ton of people out in the water at the moment. But before the attack actually happens to Alex, the dog goes missing. and it's not something that was like focused on directly. It was just one of the things that's happening in the background as Brody's getting talked to by some of the prominent people in town, concerned about their front, I believe their front driveway was being blocked by somebody. And then you have the old guy that had scared him earlier, where he pops up and says, "Oh, it's really cold." And he sits down, and Brody says, "That's some bad hat, Harry." Somebody decides to use that as their production company.
It was Brian Singer, I believe.
Yeah. So the dog disappears in the midst of all this, and he's like, "Pippet, where are you? I can't find you." And then, as some people are watching, the kid in the distance on the little yellow raft gets bumped up out of the water, and then you see fin and tail and blood bubbling, and the kid bobs in the water and then disappears. Pretty violent, actually. I thought that was probably the in a drastic way to bring you to the fact that this is going to be a gory, scary movie, not necessarily like Friday the 13th kind of gore that happens in the 80s. But as far as the 70s go, that was quite a lot of bubbling blood. Do you remember seeing anything around the 70s, Dad, that was anything close to this?
I don't think so. I was kind of interested when the book talked about that. Benchley seemed to be involved in establishing what I put in quotation marks here, shark attitude.
Mhm.
And he talks about the shark saying that there was no conviction that would have no. I don't know what the word is. There was nothing in the water that made him think it was food. But food was not a concept of significance. The fish was impelled to attack. If what it swallowed was digestible, that was food. If not, it would later be regurgitated. The mouth opened, and with a final sweep of the sickle, notice the Grim Reaper, the sickle tail of the fish struck. So the kid was hit because the shark was impelled. His attitude made him do this.
Mhm.
He can't swim. He can't stop swimming without dying. So among the things that he's doing is always looking for sustenance, and his mouth is pretty much open most of the time. So his attitude was, I'll swallow whatever's there, and if it's food, I'll use it. If not, I'll spit it back out later. Jen, does that compute with what science thinks a great white would be doing and
Oh yeah.
thinking and so on?
Especially like a kid on a raft with arms and legs flailing out sides on a square raft would look more like a sea turtle, where that's why people on surfboards with their arms and legs dangling from the bottom look remarkably like a seal, which is the great white's preferred food source.
Yeah.
So if they come charging up out of the water, take a bite out of your surfboard, they usually spit you out because you're like, that's not a seal. If it's super hungry, it may come back and do a investigative, bite and see if maybe it's something it can eat. But it's such a usually traumatic bite that the first bites you're gonna bleed out. So they're not going to necessarily consume you, but a fatal shark attack could be the result of an investigative bite. All depends on where they bite you.
Yep.
So that's good to know. So if you're in the water and a shark comes up and attempts to try to bite you, what do, Jen?
You grab its nose and flip it upside down.
Grab its nose. What if it's a great white?
You poke at its eyeballs and its gills.
Okay.
You can.
Because you can't really flip that thing upside down.
Not necessarily, but go for the eyes, go for the gills. If you can.
All right.
But the strength of this silly sucker is it says that half of the fish was out of the water, taking
Oh,
that
yeah.
kid.
If you watch Air Jaws, if they have the ability to get a good depth from underneath, they're going to come charging at you 40, 60 miles an hour, and they'll go right up out of the water 10, 15 feet in the air. Which is
Scary as hell.
it's
But
amazing.
at that speed, the people that saw it said, "What do you think I just saw?
Mm-hmm.
Did I see what I thought I saw? You know, because
Yeah.
it happened so fast."
If you watch
Yeah.
Air Jaws documentaries, it's amazing to see a great white breach out of the water. It's fantastic.
So Morgan, Jen, she did say hi, and she says she's just here to listen. And Todd and Sherry are listening as well. So
Todd and Sherry.
hey guys. All right. Let's see. So everybody starts screaming. They see this event happen. They're not quite sure what they saw, but they see this event happen. Everybody starts screaming. Everybody starts coming in from the waist deep water, most of them, and you hear the guy's looking for his dog, and Mrs. Kintner comes to the beach and says, "Where's my kid? Where's my kid?" Basically, Alex. And here's the deflated raft with some shark bite holes in it, floating in the bloody water up to the beach. So then well, it's actually a difference here too. That's in the book. Within a half hour, or within an hour-ish, of Alex Kintner getting attacked, the dog wasn't part of the book, but within an hour, about a quarter mile away, a 65-year-old man named Morris Carter also gets attacked and killed. And this was actually witnessed by more people. The Alex Kintner attack, they thought they might have seen something, but other people didn't see anything. But Morris, not Carter, I'm sorry, Cater, was actually witnessed by more people, so that caused more of an uproar. And that was told directly to the reporters. So now we had 2 deaths on top of Chrissy. So next scene we got, I think we're about 20 minutes into the movie-ish. We got a $3,000 reward up on the board in a town meeting in probably a local classroom, since the got a chalkboard, a green chalkboard, and a whole lot of people coming in to sit down in little desks and chairs. The mayor and the councilmen are up front, and they start talking about the reasons why they should or shouldn't close, and everybody's concerned, and finally it gets quiet, and they ask Brody, well, "Chief, what are you going to do?" He says, "I'm going to have to close the beach." And the mayor chimes in, "But only for 24 hours. Wait, I did not agree to that. Oh, no, we got to be able to protect our community. We got to be able to protect our economy. 24 hours. We'll deal with it. Everything will be good." In that, cacophony of people talking and raising their voices about what's going to happen, you hear a screech on the chalkboard, some fingernails, and suddenly somebody that wasn't there in the previous scene, the previous shot of that, has now drawn a picture of a shark eating someone, as well as is sitting comfortably and he's munching on some kind of food. And this is our first interaction with Quint. Now, Quint in the book doesn't actually show up for quite some time. They mention him early in the book, but really he doesn't show up until almost 2/3 of the way through. The last third of the book is really where he comes in with the orca. But they introduce him here for one reason and one reason only. To say that $3,000 and a bunch of amateurs is not going to be able to do the job to get this shark. He starts explaining what a shark is, what shark is going to do, and he basically says, look, give me $10,000, me, myself, I don't want anybody else, I don't need anybody else's help, it's going to be me, and for that, you're going to get the head, the tail, the whole damn thing. Mayor Vaughn, and I'll let you guys chime in just a second. Mayor Vaughn, after thanking Mr. Quint, actually, is there anything you want to say about Quint? I might as well ask you that right now.
Go ahead, Deb.
If there isn't, I'll go on. But if there's something you want to say about Quint, now in the book, he's 6'4". He's a lean 180, 190 pounds. He's bald. He's described as wearing a t-shirt, faded blue jeans, some graying sneakers, and he's about 50 years old. Now, this is another line, Dad, that I liked. He says, so Brody guessed about 50, though surely he had once been 20 and would one day be 60. It was impossible to imagine what he would look like at either of those ages. His present age seemed the age he should be, should always be, and should always have been. Oh, I thought that was kind of interesting. And he wears a Marine Corps fatigue hat on top of his bald head. So I thought that was an interesting turn of phrase. Although he might have been 20 and might be 60 someday, looks like he should always have been 50.
Well, it was interesting to me when I first, the first thing you see when the screen comes on to show who's going to be in it, his name is above the rest of them. As they go to the end, his name is not. But I thought it was significant, and so I wonder why they think that's important at this point. Maybe it wasn't. Eventually, they came to the conclusion it didn't make any difference who. There were three guys there, and they were the ones that confronted the shark. But I thought it was interesting. At this point, Quint throws down the gauntlet. Essentially says, "You want to stop the shark? I'm your man. Otherwise, kiss your future goodbye, because that ain't gonna do it."
As far as the naming, where you have Roy Scheider and Richard Dreyfuss on the lower level, and then you have what's his name?
Robert Shaw.
Robert Shaw's name, just that step higher. I don't know. Ego, amount of money he wanted.
He was more of a well-known. I mean, he had been in more things. Scheider and Dreyfuss were still pretty unknown. I think Scheider had just been in, I think, The French Connection
as the secondary character.
Yeah, and Dreyfuss was in like American Graffiti, but hadn't been in much else. So to see them two as the front runner may not have been a draw. And Spielberg, this was his, second movie, so he was unknown as well. So putting Shaw ahead, I think, probably is just to get some people to watch it.
Do you have anything to say about Shaw, Dad or Jen? I know Jen's got some.
Well, I think he showed his sturdiness as Red Grant in From Russia with Love, and
Yeah,
he's a
getting
pretty tough
punched
character.
in the solar plexus
In the
with the brass
brass
knuckles.
knuckle.
Yeah.
Yeah. So at this stage of his life, he doesn't have to do the beefcake stuff to prove he's tough. And I think it got him in the scene by essentially saying, "This is who I am. I will do this. I'm capable of that." And there wasn't anybody challenging him in the crowd. The actor was doing a good job of making of a scene stealing blast at these idiots who think they can just throw money and solve the problem. Uh, he was an interesting character. He proceeds to be what he decided the character was going to be like, because when it came to making some statements in there, a lot of what was going on was essentially ad-libbed.
Mm-hmm.
and not to get way ahead of the story, but talking about the Indianapolis, the sinking of the Indianapolis, number of guys tried to write that scene, and
Mm-hmm.
the one who succeeded was Quint.
Yeah.
He wrote the scene, and they used his words. So the wherewithal of him as an actor was probably it was good they had him there, because when it came time to see what he did in the movie, he was convincing by what he has done up to that point. He's just don't take no crap from nobody. I am who I am.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he did a lot of the ad-libbing, and a lot of it was influenced by the guy that plays Ben Gardner, who was a local on Martha's Vineyard, that they got to do a couple of scenes with him. And they said if they didn't have Robert Shaw, he would have been Quint. Like, he's the one that came up with it's not like going down to the pond and catching Tommy Knocks or Tommy Cobs or whatever they're called. That was his line. And Shaw used it later on when they're going out fishing. He's like, "Oh, they'll be wishing or having so much fun. They'll be wishing their fathers had never met their mothers." He came up with that line all on his own. He was just that kind of a big personality. And Robert Shaw was also a very big personality that clashed with just about everybody. Like, him and Richard Dreyfuss hated each other. Like, literally hated each other. And he was constantly teasing him and berating him in front of people. And a little kid came up to him and asked, everybody was playing catch, and he came up to Robert Shaw and started talking to him. He's like, "Get away from me, you little shit." Like, he was just no filter.
You said that was Kintner, right? That was Alex Kintner.
Yeah. He said everybody was so nice, and we would play catch in between takes. And he's like, I came up to him, and he's like, "Get away from me." Wouldn't want anything to do with you.
Well, in my notes of the book, between half of the shark coming out of the water when the kid on the raft was eaten, and Quint coming to grips with the silly bounty, there was the comment that Thursday's special was hamburger. So at the local food outlet in the town, Thursdays was devoted to hamburger. The day that the kid got chewed up was a Thursday.
And an interesting story after that is later, like 20 years later, the kid that played Alex actually owned a pub called the Wharf Pub in Massachusetts. The mother goes in to order, she goes into this restaurant. and she sees on the menu is an Alex Kintner sandwich. And she's like, "Oh my God, I played his mother in the movie." And they're like, "Hold on, just 1 second." And the owner comes out, and it was him. So they got to, be reunited after 25 years. He doesn't own it anymore, but it was quite a story at the time.
I guess. Quint's final response there, and I'm not sure that it makes a whole lot of difference to the movie, but what he essentially says is, we'll find each other, all right, but not today. So their challenge was, well, if you're not going to take the money and try and stop this thing for us, we're not quite sure what the heck you're going to do. How do you expect to find this shark? And he said, we'll find each other, but not today. So in a kind of a prophetic line, you know that sooner or later he will be eyeball to eyeball with his target, and the target will be eyeball to eyeball with him. And it seemed like Quint knew that it had to happen that way.
Interesting.
So the when Quint gives his $10,000 bounty, the mayor, after thanking Quint dismissively, is glancing around at the other councilmen, and they're like, "No, we're not giving up $10,000 for this," and so they're all shaking their heads. He says, "Well, I guess we'll take it under advisement," and that's when Quint says, "Yeah, well, one way or the other, you know where to find me," and he walks out the door. So now you got Brody's problem, where he's not quite sure how to continue doing what he's doing and still being able to protect the community. So he starts researching sharks, and so he's sitting there reading up on sharks, and he's looking at all these pictures of sharks in I think this was a drawn book, but his wife sort of sneaks up, not intentionally, sneaks up behind him, scares the crap out of him. He scares the crap out of her as he jumps, and as when they finally calm down from that, he's like, this is really quite stressful for me, and she's like, well, we could always, have some fun. And they sort of lay back, lounging in the front room with some drinks, and they hear the kids outside. And in the book, he's got 3 kids, and in the movie, he's got 2. He's got Michael and Sean. And Michael's birthday is tomorrow, and Michael is out in his birthday present, which is a boat, right off of the little dock that they have on their little stretch of beach. And he's sitting in the boat, and yells to him, "Michael, get out of the boat. I don't want you in the boat." And the wife Ellen basically says, "Well, you got to give him a chance to play with his birthday present. I mean, it's not like he's gonna ever go back in the water after today anyway. Why should we worry?" And he's like, "Well, I guess you're right." And meanwhile, she starts looking at the pictures in the book and sees a drawing of a shark bashing into somebody's boat, putting a hole in it, and then immediately she yells,
Michael, get out of that damn boat. Didn't you hear your dad?
so she gets scared too.
And interesting that he grows up to be a marine biologist in Jaws 4.
Yeah, and is it Sean in what happens to Sean in Jaws 3?
He dies in the beginning of Jaws 4.
Okay, so
He's the
who is
sheriff,
Dennis
and
Quaid's character in Jaws 3?
What's that?
Who
I
is
don't know
Dennis
who that
Quaid's
is.
character? I thought that was Sean down in Florida. I don't know.
I don't know. I kind of blacked that one from
Oh, they kind
memory.
of all
So
are
bad.
crap. after that. So after this one.
Just
All right. So next thing you got is the idiots. There's a couple of guys in a rowboat at night, and they pull up to a dock, and they pull out a nice, huge hook and throw down, as I believe Charlie puts it, his wife's holiday roast. And his friend says, well, with $3,000, you can buy a whole lot of roasts. So they hook that, throw it into the water, and this is, well, idiotic. They're standing on the dock, and the roast is hooked to a tire so that it'll float, and it starts floating out. And suddenly, something grabs hold of it, the roast, and starts booking away from shore. Now, they had tied off the chain on this hook to the end of the pier, the end of the dock, one of the posts, and it basically pulls a good section of this dock into the water, and Charlie goes into the water with it. So the dock heads out a little ways, stops, and then it turns around and comes back. Now, depending on the lead that you have with the chain, you could probably argue that Charlie was already bitten by the time he was able to get out of the water. But he scrambles up just in time for the dock to bounce against the remaining standing dock, and that's it. There's nothing more. The shark doesn't show up. There's no more moving of the dock. It's just gone. Which, well, if he ate the meat off of the hook, that's all well and good. I'm wondering whether or not he chewed through the chain, because that's a pretty big hook. And however it worked, luckily the idiots make it out of the water in time. Everything's fine, and I believe, let me see, Charlie says, quote, "Can we go home now?"
And that was
say
the
about
scene
this?
that was a budgetary thing, because Spielberg had originally wanted it to be the harbor master sitting in his shack, and then behind him you see the masts of the sailboats each start moving, like the shark underneath it was causing the sailboats to move. And then when the harbor master went down to the dock to wash out his coffee pot, the shark was going to jump up and grab him by the arm and drag him into the ocean. But they couldn't figure out how to make that work on the budget that they had, so that got scrapped and they did the dock scene instead.
Well, I don't think it took anything away from the story. I think it added to the fact that there's a lot of local idiots that think that they can handle the situation on their own.
Yeah.
So I thought it went pretty well to the next big scene that happens. But I think a lot of the things that Spielberg, when we were listening to that the 2-hour documentary of the making, I think some of the things that Spielberg had wanted to put into the story, it was serendipitous that they weren't able to make those things happen. Because a lot of the scenes that he wanted to add sounded like they weren't going to be, they were more for spectacle rather than make the story move along. I think Spielberg actually lucked out with not being able to do a lot of those scenes that he was planning. Excuse me. All right. Next morning, Hendrix, that's his name, Hendrix. Hendrix is relaying the idiot's tale to Brody, saying how they used the holiday roast to try to to get the shark. As all the fishermen in town seem to be readying their boats of various sizes for a shark hunting trip. This being the first time we see Matt Hooper in the story. In the book, he's in his mid-20s. He's 6'1", 170 pounds. So he's he's Brody's size in height, but much leaner. And he sees Hooper as a enemy / combatant because he's feeling that his wife is and him are no longer in the same place that they were a few years ago, and he seems to think that she's looking at the local beach users, the people who are sunbathing, and he tends to be looking at them too. So he's a little intimidated by Hooper when he first runs across him. So he's 6'1", hair bleached in the sun. In the movie, right at this point, as you see these fishermen trying to get into their boats, and you see Ben Gardner actually helping Matt Hooper, Richard Dreyfuss, out of his little boat, his little motorboat, and goes to find Brody. And Ben Gardner, I think, points to I don't know if does he point to Brody? I can't remember. Either way, he sees a cop there and figures, okay, well, this is the first place I should look. Maybe I can ask him to see. And unfortunately, Brody's got his hands full, running back and forth, trying to get idiots from overpopulating a boat and causing it to possibly sink before they even get out anywhere. Alternately, he also has somebody with sticks of dynamite who want to throw it at the shark. So he's dealing with a bunch of stupidity here. He tells Hooper to try to get those guys to not overfill the boat. And you got, let me see, Hooper saying, the officer told me to tell you that you're overloading the boat. And then there's various dismissive remarks from these guys. And he says, okay, well, if you're not going to listen to me, do you know where I could stay or where there's a place to eat? I'll just turn around and head that way. Great. Lots of help you're going to be, but you're all going to die. Turns around and walks away. Pretty great line. Yeah, you're all going to die. Sort of a, I don't know what I can do for you. You're all going to die. Todd said Sean Brody is involved with a skier, Leah Thompson, in SeaWorld.
Okay, so
Mike,
that was...
Wait, hold on. Sean Brody's involved with skier. His name is John Patch. Mike Brody was the SeaWorld engineer, and that was Dennis Quaid. So Dennis was the oldest brother.
Okay. Yeah, I lost 3.
To throw a little bit of strangeness into this, when I was reading the book and these characters, as they showed up, being described in there, all of these guys were people who were being described into my mind by Benchley, with the exception of, for about the first half of the book, I saw Hooper as the voice of Dreyfuss.
Mm.
As I'm reading it, the phrases that were being used by Benchley brought to mind Dreyfuss. But in the actual confrontation then later with the shark, it wasn't Dreyfuss anymore. But it was interesting that for a while there, the phrases that were being used by that character reminded me of Dreyfuss. It's a very strange sensation to think it made it easier for the person who was out there looking for people to play these roles. If they happen to have the same reaction that I had, well, that ought to be Dreyfuss. I don't know if anybody knew Dreyfuss much in that, what does his voice sound like?
Yeah, I
Oh,
think they only knew him from just seeing him in American Graffiti, and
yeah.
he liked him.
Yeah.
And the mayor, that was the only person that he had in mind was Murray Hamilton, because
Yep.
he had seen him in the FBI story with Jimmy Stewart, and he was like, "That's him. We got to get him."
Yeah.
And that was the only person they looked at.
Well, interestingly, the Hamilton played the guy so well that I just wanted to punch him out for his stupid uh, rendition of what it was he was trying to sell all this time. In the
Yeah,
back of his, you get the feeling in the back of his mind, he knew he was probably cutting his own throat, but he couldn't admit that. It was just,
no, and they turned him into a meme. They're like, "This is why it's important to vote for your officials," because they're like, "This guy is still the mayor in Jaws 2. Like, this is why you vote."
yeah.
They
In the
turned him
book,
into
it
a
actually
meme.
said he won by 76 votes, I think it was. And considering Amity's probably not that well populated, I
Yeah.
suppose that means that winning by almost, by 75 people in a sparsely populated island meant that he was pretty popular. But yeah,
It
wouldn't be
was
very
like
surprising.
he got an extra third compared to the other guys of the voters.
Okay, let me see here. So Hooper ends up introducing himself to Brody, catches up with him inside a shack, and finally introduces himself. Hey, I'm the guy from the Oceanographic Institute. Oh yeah, we called you guys. Yeah, great. It's perfect that you showed up. And he says, the first thing I need to do is I need to take a look at Chrissy Watkins. So here we go, heading to the medical examiner's place. Is there anything up to this point that either of you have to say
I
besides
just
what
thought it
you've
was
been adding?
interesting that they open up the big shelf, like normally they would pull out the whole drawer and there'd be a body, and they bring out like a bin like this, and that's all that's left over. It's just fits in a
Yeah.
tiny little tub.
What's wrong with that, Jen? What's I don't understand.
Those boats, I tell ya,
Oh,
damage.
they can do so much damage. So he gets the drawer and sees the hand and looks down inside, and all that's left in the book was I guess they had the head, part of the torso, one breast, and the arm from here up. I believe that was all they had left. So that's what was fit in that drawer, and immediately, besides practically retching, Hooper, looking down at, starts recording and saying, "Well, this is definitely a shark attack." And he asks Brody, "This is no boat accident." He says, "Did you actually, notify the Coast Guard?" Brody's like, "No, we kept it local." So during this examination, he's sort of blazing Brody for not doing more. Um, and I'm not sure. I think in the book, wasn't Brody trying? Didn't he say he wanted to alert the Coast Guard as well? I thought he.
I think so.
I think he
Yeah.
wanted to, and that was another thing that the councilman stopped him from doing.
Yep.
So I think that's why they threw that line in there. But through the close to 2 minute, 3 minute quick look at the body, he determines this isn't just a small shark. This is a very large shark. Its bite radius is huge. Huge. So the next scene,
But the sharks that he lists, those are not sharks. Like He says,
Really?
what was it? The Angemanus or Cirrus glaucus. There are no sharks by that name. There's a Carcharodonus uh, longimus, which is the oceanic white tip. A Cirrus paucus is the longfin mako, and a Prions glaucus is a blue shark. So they're mixed and matched, but they're the
Is that
ones that he
something?
spouts off.
Did they do that on purpose, or is it something that was overseen by the writers of the script?
I think it was overlooked, or but that's according to the Moat Marine Laboratory in Sarasota, that those are not actual shark names.
It's good to know. So, the very next scene is a whole lot of fishermen hooping and hollering, all happy that. I actually right before seeing Chrissy Hooper or Chrissy Watkins as Hooper's doing that, Ben Gardner and the Hunters are out. They went out and they started chumming, and people were throwing dynamite and stuff, actually proving the point that they were more idiots, and that Brody had his hands full. So then Hooper takes a look at Chrissy, and the next thing is they found a tiger shark, and they have it hanging, and Hooper's looking at it going, well, I don't know. And he looks at the bite radius. He's checking everything out. Meanwhile, everybody's all celebrating, including Brody, the mayor, reporters. They're getting pictures. Everybody's posing with this tiger shark. And Hooper comes to Brody and says, I'm not sure this is the shark. He says, what are you talking about? Of course it's a shark. How many sharks this size could possibly be in our area? And he says, well, the likelihood that these guys actually got the right shark is about 1 in 100. And he's like, what? He says, not to mention the bite radius doesn't match. Now, I'm not saying it's the wrong shark. It's possibly the right shark, but the only way that we can tell for sure is to cut it open and see what it's been eating lately. The mayor balks at this because you don't want to just cut a shark open in the middle of everybody and have body parts of Alex Kintner dropping out. So he immediately says no. So right after the mayor says no, everybody stops and starts looking at a car that's driving up. And a woman gets out of the car with a gentleman, and she's got a veil over her eyes. And she comes directly up to Brody. And it's Mrs. Kintner. And she says, Chief Brody. And he's looking at her, and she slaps him across the face, across the cheek. Jen, do you remember how many slaps she actually did?
17 takes.
17 times. Brody was slapped very hard. Or Roy Scheider was slapped very hard. So when you're looking and you see that his face is already red before she slaps him, that's the reason. So 17 takes of getting slapped. So Chief Brody, slap. I just found out a girl got killed last week, and you knew there was a shark out there. You knew it was dangerous, but you let people go swimming anyway. You knew all those things, but still my boy is dead now, and there's nothing you can do about it. My boy is dead. I wanted you to know that. And in the middle of this, the slap, it cut to Hooper and his reaction to what's going on. And he realizes just how much gravity, how much Brody was feeling at this moment for trying to have closed it, but not being able to close the beaches. And it was just a quick cut to Hooper. But then it finishes with Mrs. Kintner, and then she turns around and walks away. And it cuts back to Hooper's reaction as Brody turns to walk away, and the mayor's like, "It's sorry, Martin. She's wrong. It's not your fault." And Brody says, "No, it is my fault," and he walks away. So pretty harsh. I mean, yes, it was his fault. The book goes into this. He really has some guilt over the deaths in the book. And this, I think they did a pretty good job of showing how much remorse he had and how much guilt he was feeling. Any thoughts on that, Dad? And anybody, either of you, have any?
I think his character was probably bemused by the whole sequence of events, because the only time he didn't think he would be responsible for something terrible happening on the beach was when he was being cajoled by the time between attacks to say, well, okay, maybe maybe he is moving on down the coast, but it's not my job to say that that's likely to happen. My job is to make sure he doesn't have a chance out there now. So when they come back and say, "Yeah, my kid's dead," and you're not telling anybody that this was a possibility, not shutting down the beach, yeah, you really are responsible. And he says, "Yeah, he didn't have the power to overrule those selectmen, the council, or whatever."
Yeah.
And there was a good deal of remorse. It it becomes probably part of the driving force when he gets on the Orca, and
Yeah,
he
considering
really
he's
does want.
deathly afraid of the water, and I
Yeah.
think you're right. That's the reason why he insists on going out there,
Yep.
despite the dangers that and the fact he's scared shitless.
And an interesting anecdote about the tiger shark was that was a real shark that was killed and caught off the coast of Florida. They shipped it up there, and while it was hanging there, they're doing several takes. It's in the hot sun. The organs like started to slip down into
Yeah.
the mouth of the thing, and it just absolutely stunk up the entire dock, and you can see the flies are flying around it, and it was pretty stinky apparently. By the time they were done, they were pretty quick to get away from it.
I would
Yeah,
imagine.
it looked like he was a little bit paunchy by the time they got done with the scene.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
it was pretty rank.
So you're saying maybe part of the look that Roy Scheider had was had to do with the stench of the shark.
Yeah, I mean when they're all like posing around it, getting the picture, and they're looking in the mouth, and it's like, oh, yeah.
And Hooper doing the actual measurement of the mouth.
Right, getting right up in there.
Hmm.
All right, next scene is dinner. Brody didn't eat anything. His little bit of father son. His son mimics him, and sort of giving a little bit of humanity back to how Brody's feeling. I think if it wasn't for his son, his youngest son, doing that, I think he probably would have still been pretty. Maybe would have gotten drunk that night, passed out, woke up the next morning with a major headache. Really drunk. I mean, I'm pretty sure he got drunk anyway. Hooper knocks at the door with a bottle of wine.
2 bottles.
2 bottles of wine. They have a conversation with. He has a conversation with Ellen, which is the most of the interaction that the two of them actually have together. Unlike the book, with the affair. And she just asks him questions about sharks, and he starts explaining things. And I think during that is when Brody starts thinking, well, I think you're the expert. I guess this is the way we're going to have to do it. So why not just cut the shark open? We'll find out. And his wife says, "Are you allowed to do that?" Hell, I'm the chief of police. I can do anything I want. One more drink, and we'll go. So,
yeah, his mega pint of wine.
yeah, his mega pint.
And I thought it was funny that Hooper was asking, like, where's a good restaurant on the island? And he's like, I don't know where to go to eat. I'm just going to show up at Brody's house with 2 bottles of wine and see what they're serving. Because he just kind of...
Since Brody
steals
didn't eat
his
anything,
dinners.
he ate Brody's dinner.
Oh,
All right.
his free meal?
So, shark content. So, the next thing on my list. Hooper is cutting open the shark, and Brody's staying way far back. And Hooper starts pulling crap out of the shark's belly. Nothing of which has anything to do with Alex Kintner, or anything. They make a reference to this shark. This particular shark came up from the south, and because it's got a Louisiana plate and its gullet. Well, that you can't really guarantee either, considering how many people are vacationing along the coast and could have fallen anywhere. So they had made that comment. Somebody made that comment. Was it you, Jen?
No, I think it was on one of the documentaries because he said it probably came up from southern waters because it is typically a warmer water shark. They don't usually go that far north. That's why they thought it was so unusual that they caught a tiger shark.
So it guarantees that it's not the right shark, and now they have to go out and find the shark. So for some reason they go out at night looking for the shark. In the fog. Yeah, brilliant. in Hooper's small little powerboat. So they go out, and in the fog, they end up finding a wreck of Ben Gardner's boat. The top of it, the part that's actually out of the water. And Hooper gets into his scuba gear, says, I'm going to have to go down there and, see what I can find. He goes down into the water. And Jen, do you want to explain or do you want me to continue with, and then you can explain the part you want to explain?
Yeah, you can go ahead.
Okay. So he swims down underneath and finds a hole in the boat, very much like the hole that the drawn shark that Ellen, is that her name, Ellen? I keep saying
Yeah.
it wrong. The book that she had seen when she yelled at her son to get out of the boat. There's a hole in the side of the hull, and he sees something white sitting in it, and he goes and grabs a tooth, a shark tooth, out from it. And the second he does that, a head, the head presumably of Ben Gardner, floats into the hole and scares the living crap out of him, making him jump back. He drops his flashlight, drops the tooth, and scares the living crap out of him. And he gets the hell out of the water.
That was the only place that really scared me in the movie.
Yeah, that's the only time I jumped. That, seeing the eyeball gone, and the only
startling to have your head pop right into your face.
But that scene didn't show up until after post-production. After it was done, they went through and they refilmed that in the swimming pool because he wanted one more jump out of the audience. So when they did the final screen, I mean, popcorn's flying up in the air, like people were jumping out of their skin. So the first time around when they were doing the test, it was just him getting the tooth. And then he ends up dropping it. for some reason other than seeing the head.
So he ended up perfecting that scene. He filmed it like 9 different ways, and finally got the
Which
reaction he wanted out of it. But then he noticed that the jump scare later wasn't quite as big. What jump scare was that, Jen? Do you remember?
that was the first time you see the shark jump up out of the water when he's chumming.
The Brody scene.
Yeah, the Brody scene.
Gonna need a bigger boat.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. So, Hooper. Next scene is daylight, and Amityville sign has been a fin's been added to it for shark attacks. And Hooper tries to warn Vaughn that a great white shark has staked its claim in the waters off Amity Island and will continue to feed here as long as there is food in the water. And Vaughn says back, Mayor Vaughn says, "Tomorrow's the 4th of July. Do what you have to, but these beaches will stay open." So Brody has his job cut out for him. He's got to find people to man boats to help patrol, people with guns that can shoot a shark if they have to. More boats, the better. So he's on the phone trying to get all this stuff happening when people start arriving on the 4th of July for the 4th of July weekend. The chumming jump got me because Brody wasn't paying attention at all. Todd likes that scene too. The jump scene.
And the
was
filming
part
on Martha's Vineyard was so strict. This was the first film that was ever filmed on Martha's Vineyard, and they were so strict about zoning, and they had to put up that billboard, film that scene, and take it down the same day. So they did it very, very quickly, but they wanted nothing left over from any of the filming. So even Quint's shack, they built it and had to take it down right after they were done filming.
Wow.
So they're very, very protective of their island.
Now, I've got to say that I'm quite surprised at how quickly this movie was made. Now the producers ended up getting a preview copy of the book before it was actually published because one of their wives was actually an editor of a magazine. So they both read the book before it was released in February 1974. And then the movie was done filming, principal photography was done filming in October of 1974. The book came out in February, principal filming was done in October, and it was released in March as the first, not released, I'm sorry. It was screened in March. It was released in June. That's an insanely fast production, script writing. Hi, kitten.
Hi, Gigi May.
It was incredible. I can't believe that they were able to come up with all that, including a mechanical shark that was working before they put it in salt water. It's insane that they were able to do that. So,
well, they barely had a script before they started filming.
wow.
They just wanted to get the film rights to it, and they're like, we'll figure everything else out after. And then it did take longer to film than they wanted because the shark kept breaking down.
Do you need to go, Dad?
I don't know why they called from at this time out of area. It's too late at night to be doing that.
10 o'clock, yeah. 10 o'clock Eastern, at least. All right.
Yeah.
All right, so let's quickly get through this next portion so we can get to them on the boat. So they're patrolling the beaches. You got the news reporter Benchley saying Amity Island, long known for its sunny white beaches and clear water, now a dark cloud in the shape of a killer shark has arrived. Um,
Dum.
Vaughn's walking around, but everybody's on the beach. Nobody's in the water. So Mayor Vaughn prompts one of the select men and his family, look, get out into the water. They'll all follow you. So he's the one that actually prompted everybody to get in the water. They start all having a good day. Lots of people enjoying the water. Lots of people not really paying attention to the fact that the shark is out there. And the patrol boats, including...
Let me throw in a word.
Yeah.
Let me throw in a word for you. One of the things that Benchley does is occasionally he'll put a word in there which is his opinion of how to describe something specifically. Like, how's he going? The shark was variously told, we were told variously, he was impelled to or compelled to do some things. I won't even begin to describe what I think about that. But when you said it was the next day, it was nice, sunshiny, people were doing and so on, he used the word maundered. And until I read that, I said, he's just throwing some words in there because he can. Maundered, he was describing the cloudy day. There weren't many clouds in the sky. So that maundering means to wander as a drunk, to act in a confused way. So in his mind, he's trying to describe even the environment outside seems not to know what to do with what's coming up. He's trying to, in his mind, he's even got the environment being confused about how do we fight what we can't see. Wandered. Yeah, I didn't mean to turn you too far aside, but I thought you don't describe clouds as maundering across the sky. Most people don't, anyway.
Yeah.
So, are you saying that you find his adjectives interesting, or good, interesting, bad, interesting?
Well, it brought to mind some things that were going on apparently in his head, because he a couple of times talked about the sickle. Now, the shark has a fin there which is shaped like a sickle.
Mm-hmm.
And the way he defines it in the book is, well, you know who else has a sickle? The Grim Reaper. Okay, so you got this the sickles in there, and he threw in the word avuncular. I looked it up.
We lost your sound, Dad. Oh, there you go.
Lost your sound for a second. What was the last thing you said?
So he used the word avuncular, defining it in every source that I got. I could understand what avuncular was meant to say, but I couldn't figure out how he threw it in that sentence. And I've read it a few times, and I just don't understand. It's of or pertaining to an uncle. Okay, that doesn't tell you anything. Synonyms: generous, hospitable, kind-hearted, open-handed, benevolent, good, selfless, all of these things. And where he used it, it was talking about the shark. People's response to the shark. Well, how the hell can a shark be generous and selfless and so on? That's not a good thing for our community to have a shark out there. So I thought he threw a word in there that maybe in his mind had an altogether different picture than what the dictionary was trying to say.
Yeah, that's wild.
I did never find out what part of the country wimwams came from, though. He said that one of the things that they understood his parents had always had given him out of the wimwams, told him don't go too deep in the water or that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
What's the wimwams? I don't know. But he threw that in there. I suppose there's a part of the country that understands what a wimwam was,
Yeah.
but that's
Like
that's
New
not
England.
yeah. Some places like calling a snack a knick-knack. I mentioned that to Terry the other day. So I had a friend in New York who had brought over potato chips. They were knickknacks, snacks. But I
Hmm.
couldn't figure out where wimwams came from. Middle Atlantic, someplace, I guess.
Yeah.
Not to not to dissuade you from the speed they were trying to get
No,
to
no,
the
no.
place.
It's fine. I'm glad you were you had something to add that was that interesting. I don't know what a wee wham is. I just glossed over that word as we went along. I'm like, maybe I'll look it up later. Never did. Um. So the next thing we have is a shark sighting, um, and you see a fin, and everybody gets out of the water. They're pushing other people down into the water. They're barely able to get out of the water in time, and all the boats crowd around with their guns pointed at the shark fin, and two kids pop up, going, we're just having
He made
fun.
me do it.
Yeah, the one kid says he made me do it to the other kid. Way to throw me under the bus, douchebag.
Yeah. It's a wonder they didn't get shot.
They should have, probably. So as they're all uh, reeling after the false alarm, a girl yells that shark in the pond and starts pointing over to the area that Brody's kid and his friends are playing on their boat. There's also a guy on a rowboat who comes up, says, "Hey, is everything okay, guys?" And meanwhile, the shark fin comes up behind the guy in the rowboat, knocks the boat, knocks the guy into the water. And this is the first time that you see at about 1 hour and 3 minutes. The first time you see the shark, you actually see the side view of it. I'm not sure which direction I should be going here, but the body's in the water. You see the side view of it, and it comes in and attacks him and drags him under. Blood everywhere. Michael's right there when it all happens. He's in the water. He falls into the water, and he's right in the water when this guy gets eaten. The shark ends up, for some reason, saying, "No, this is a good enough meal. I'm just gonna, take off with this guy and leave everybody else." And they end up getting the kids out of the water, and Michael, in shock, gets dragged out of the water by Brody. Something I thought was interesting was Sean was sitting there crying on the beach, left all alone, while everybody else was running after Michael. Sean's just sitting there crying, playing with the sand. So they get Michael to the hospital. He wakes up, wants some chocolate ice cream, so he can't be all that bad.
He wants coffee ice cream.
Wants coffee ice cream. So what did I say? Chocolate?
You said chocolate.
I meant coffee. Sorry. Wants some coffee ice cream. Ellen says, "I'm gonna take Sean and Brody says, "You're gonna take him home?" She says, "To New York." In kind of a, well, I think we should probably go to New York. Let's go back. I think I'm done here. And she turns around and walks off. Mayor Vaughn starts talking in a shocked voice, sort of a psychotic break. He's trying to apologize to Brody, and he tries to justify his actions of trying to get people into the water, and then finally says, "My kids were in the water," and Brody's like, well, sign this so I can get Quint to hunt this thing down. I don't know if I can. I don't know if I can. I don't have the authority. My kids were in the water. Sign this, and we'll take care of it. So he signs away, and now we have Quint on the case and ready to go hunt. So we got Quint in his shack, and Quint is making he's boiling shark jaws, and
Which you can't do.
you can't do.
Boiling shark jaws will get you a pot of teeth and gelatinous glue, like goo, because it's cartilage. So they got that wrong too. It's a good visual, but you don't boil shark jaws.
All right. And he makes his own hooch, and which Hooper downs pretty quickly, even though Brody tells him he shouldn't touch it because it's probably make him go blind. And this is the part where Quint starts giving Hooper major attitude. And now, oh, by the way, as he offers the shot to Brody, here's to swimming with bow-legged women. So he gives Hooper a hard time, saying, you know, you're crap. I don't really need a city dweller coming out with me to help with this. You're just going to get in the way. And he says, no, I'm good. Here, tie this knot. Ties the knot, throws it back at Quint. Quint doesn't even look at it, throws it down, not paying attention, and goes up and says, look at these hands. They're city hands. These aren't made for work. Eventually, Brody gets him to say, tells Quint that, hey, this is my charter. I'm the one paying for it, so I get to say who comes on the boat. And Quint says, okay, fine. He's your ballast to take care of. Let's see. You got, I'm sorry. Was that anything? Okay. They're getting all their equipment ready. Hooper's got a ton of equipment that Quint makes fun of because it's all scientific type stuff. And meanwhile, Quint's just got his M1, some barrels, the harpoon gun, and some other things. And the orca is about to leave dock, and Quint sings out, here lies the body of Mary Lee, died at the age of 103. For 15 years, she kept her virginity. Not a bad record for this vicinity. Jen, what's that from? They were worried this was a song and that they were going to have to pay pay royalties, but then Shaw.
Robert Shaw actually got it from a tombstone in Ireland. So they don't have to worry about copyright infringement because, yeah.
Because it was a tombstone.
Tombstone in Ireland.
All right.
Here lies Les Moore, 4 slugs from a 44. No less, no more. Yes. Some tombstones are colorful.
Yeah.
All right. The orca leaves the dock. So now we're in the third part of the book. After a whole lot of stuff going on with the book, with you finding out that the silent partners that Vaughn has are mafia, and now Vaughn is worried for his life because the market's bottoming out on the property values. And we have the whole third part being Brody and Hooper and Quint on the boat. So we have the scene with we have not the scene. We have a scene where Brody's chumming the water. Quint, who's sitting in the chair, crushes his beer can and sort of taunting to Hooper. And Hooper's got his little plastic cup full of water, and he finishes that, looks at Quint, sneers, crushes the plastic cup in response. So, pretty good response, all things considered.
Love it.
Let's see. Todd mentioned in the movie, appeared he was trying to fluster Brody's wife because he had her react to it as if he had slighted her by saying that to her, I thought. What part are we talking about, Todd? I'm sorry.
I think he's talking about the Mary Lee.
Oh, yeah, that's entirely possible. Because she was standing there with Brody at the time he was singing it.
And she starts running up the gangplank, flustered and crying, and
Well, she thinks she's not going to see Brody again. Which is entirely possible, all things considered. All right. So the next scene, Brody's trying to tie a knot in a rope, and Quint starts intently looking at his fishing line, and Brody's playing with the rope. Quint's looking down. He's starting to hook himself onto the gear, and takes the rod and makes sure to puts it in the base. And Brody, the second he says, "Hey, I got it," that's when the line starts going crazy. It starts pulling out like crazy, and Quint's like, "Get out of the way, Brody," as the boat comes around, and they start the first of a bit of cat and mouse with the shark. The line breaks as Quint and Hooper are arguing about whether this is just a big fish or if it's a shark. The line breaks and Hooper hits the wall. He was holding on to something. Not sure exactly what it was he was holding on to. Can't remember. But he gets slammed against the wall, and Quint looks down at him and says, "You college boys, you don't have the education to admit when you're wrong." As he's looking down, because he was saying it was a shark and not a fish. And this is where you get Richard Dreyfuss sticking dirty fish gloves into his mouth and making faces at Quint.
that's always bothered me.
Very
Oof.
gross. All right. Quint. The next scene, Quint's up in this crow's nest and tells Brody to start chumming again. And Brody, pretty pissed off that he's been chumming the whole time and Hooper hasn't had to do any of it. He's been using Old Spice to keep from throwing up. And Hooper's, meanwhile, just sitting there playing solitaire on the deck. And Quint says to him, "Hooper drives the boat. You do the chumming." So, after Brody resigns himself to having to chum some more, Quint comes down from the crow's nest and tells Hooper to get the hell up and to start driving the boat slow.
Stop playing with yourself.
Stop playing with yourself. I'm sorry. Stop playing with yourself, Hooper. Slow ahead, if you please. So here we got Brody chumming the boat. So we got this bucket full of chum, and Brody's little paddle there, his little cup, and this is where Bruce shows his face.
Yay.
This is the part that scared me most. I wasn't quite as shocked from the face coming out. I don't know, maybe I just wasn't as much into it every time I've seen this, but seeing the shark that close and saying hello, yeah, I'm not so sure I'd be okay with that. So now we have a line that is ad-libbed by Roy Scheider as he backs up and basically walks backward into Quint's into the cabin of the boat and looks over at Quint and says, "You're gonna need a bigger boat." So Jen, what's that? What's that? You had said something about that line.
Yeah, that ended up being number 35 on the greatest movie quotes list. And when they first did the test audience in, I think it was somewhere in the Midwest, he said it directly after the shark pops out of the water, and completely missed the line because people were screaming and like going absolutely crackers. So that's why they ended up putting like a 10-second delay of him like backing into the cabin and then saying the line, because they missed it the first couple of times that they did the test run because people were screaming over the line.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
All right, so Quint comes out and takes a look at the shark as it swims by, and so as Bruce does a flyby, he looks down and basically estimates 25 feet, all 3 tons of him. So big damn shark. So Quint gets a harpoon ready, the weaponry ready, and Hooper decides it's a perfect time to take a picture. So Jen, you want to explain this one? I need to get going on this a little bit further.
The first time, I mean, I don't remember how old I was when I saw Jaws. I was still in my first house, so I had to have been younger than 8. But I just immediately related to Hooper. Like, I loved sharks from a very early age, and I would be that excited person being like, oh, get in the foreground, I need something for scale, I need to get a picture, and oh, this beautiful creature, and everybody else is freaking out because it's horrible, terrifying monster. But I would have been that person like, oh my god, this is the coolest thing, and she's so beautiful. And I just, I don't know, I became a shark fanatic. And I remember I went door to door. I had to have been maybe 7, and I went door to door in my neighborhood, and I collected like $2.75 to save sharks, and I mailed it to Jacques Cousteau. I never heard back from him, but yeah, I tried to do my part for Shark Conservatory.
Shark conservation at $2.
Conservation. That was my $2.75 contribution. But I just related more to Hooper that he wanted to get pictures, and they're trying to get stuff to kill it, and he's going to go get a tracker, because that's what they do, is they just put trackers on sharks, and he wants to study it. They want to kill it. But I love that scene where he's like, just go out a little further, and Brody's like, why? Just do it. What for? Why? No, I need something for scale. He's like, scale my ass. I ain't getting out there. I just thought that was hilarious.
I don't think I would have gone out there.
I would have been at the tip top of that thing. Like,
it's not.
It's amazing.
It's Chewie's reaction. I don't care what you smell. Get in there.
Yeah.
All right. So we're heading toward the end here. I knew that this part was going to go pretty quick. So Quint gets the harpoon stuff ready, and Hooper runs down, grabs the tracker, hooks it up to the barrel just in time for Quint to take a shot. Quint's been waiting and waiting for him to tie the barrel on to the end of the line so he could take a harpoon shot. So Quint gets the shot off, and the first barrel zips into the water. So now you get the chase with one barrel, And the purpose for the barrel was, Jen.
To show the shark, basically, because the shark never worked. So that was a way for them to have the shark be present without having to show that the shark was there. Because I think they only got like 2 or 3 days where the shark actually worked. So they had to devise a plan of how can we make this shark appear and disappear without actually showing it.
Well, the question is, does the sounding of the shark get minimized by bringing 1, 2, or 3 barrels? That each of those harpoons leaving a barrel with the shark.
Mm-hmm.
Most all of them were characterized as being able to take it in one swoop,
Yeah.
but 2 of them was the normal. So when you had 2 barrels, it was harder than heck to go down and shake off the harpoon. You got these barrels trying to drag you back to the surface, and they had never seen a shark that had gotten more than 2 before.
Yeah. And experts would be like that. There's no way that would happen anyway. They have like inflatable, about the size of maybe a medicine ball usually, and 3 of those little balls would be enough to keep a large white shark to the surface. So obviously, this is dramatized for the story's sake, but
So what you're
not
saying is it's
plausible.
a scary big shark.
She's big. He's a big boy.
All right, so we got triumphant chase music going on with the first barrel. Eventually, the barrel goes under the water, and the triumphant music starts to flatten as they now lose the shark. So Quint's on the front of the boat. It's a montage of just pictures of them looking around and trying to find the shark in the twilight. And then Quint on the front of the boat, silhouetted against the reddening evening sky, very reminiscent of one of Jen's favorite movies, Gone with the Wind.
You see the black silhouette of Scarlet against the back, reddening sky, and a very
very cool shot. It's a good picture. So now we got the evening, and we start off with scar measuring. Very much the male measuring happening here, only with scars. So 1 scar, 2 scars, they start showing leg scars, and then Quint shows a particular scar. And this scar he got because he was... no, actually, I take that back. It's all the scars are just scars. It's when they see the tattoo.
But it was a
scar that he had removed the tattoo. That's right.
Removed the tattoo.
Removed the tattoo of the USS Indianapolis. And its fateful fate, I guess. Just its fate. Being in shark-infested waters for days on end. In this particular part, this is what we had said earlier. I think that Shaw had written that. Did we say that earlier in the stream? Or were we talking
he did a revision of it. Somebody else did it. Then it went on to somebody else who did it. Then Shaw finally got a hold of it and condensed it down to like a 5-page monologue. And I remember Dreyfuss saying that whole time that he was doing the scene, you can't take your eyes off him. He was just so captivating that it's very impressive scene to watch.
Despite the fact that the first time, so pretty much Robert Shaw was drunk from morning to night, and he, the first take that he did it all the way through, but he was slurring his words so badly that he felt ashamed after realizing that he was an unintelligible mess, um, and he requested that Spielberg refilm that scene so that he could get it right because he felt bad. So that was
Yeah.
pretty cool that at least he had the
And then,
wherewithal to say, that was complete crap. I've got to do that again. So,
and
Dad,
then did it again in one take.
yeah, did it again in one take. So, Dad, we were just talking about them doing the scar measuring, and then so now we got the USS Indianapolis speech. And right after the Indianapolis speech, do you have anything to say, Dad, about the anything in there? Because you just looked at your notes.
Oh, not specifically on that, but I thought that it was amazing that it had come this long into the story to give you why he was the shark guy.
Mm-hmm.
That to describe that, to know that you're going to sit there in the water with sharks all the time. At that time of the scientific endeavor into figuring how to deal with sharks, the movies I saw before Jaws came along were always talking about what it took to figure out what a shark repellent was. These guys were in the water with no repellent. What that does to a guy's psyche, you know.
Yeah. And the more people that are bitten and killed, the more blood in the water, the more sharks are going to come in.
Yeah.
It had to have been just absolute hell.
There was no stating the odds that you would survive.
No.
The whole anticipation was none of them were going to survive.
Yeah, it's a rough scene. So, in order to break the tension, they drop into a sea shanty. Show me the way to go home. So, as they're uh, letting off steam and drunkenly pounding the table, that summons the shark back, and it starts pounding the bottom of the boat. And during the pounding of the bottom of the boat, it knocks out their generator, screws up their engine, and gets water all up under their inside their boat. So the lights go out, and Quint gets everybody to go on deck, so that they don't stay under the water or end up getting caught underwater if the boat does go down. Quint gets up and he grabs his M1 and starts firing at the tracker beacon that Hooper had put on the first barrel. So he's firing away, basically at nothing, not hitting anything. And then it's all quiet again. Next morning, they're trying to fix the engines, and suddenly the barrel that they had originally attached pops back up. So it had been out of sight for some time. And once it pops back up again, we're looking at Brody trying to get help because their engines are messed up. And he goes to the radio to call for help. And Quint smashes it with a baseball bat as Brody screams, "You're certifiable." He says, "We don't need their help." So Hooper says, "Oh, boys, I think he's coming back for a noon feeding," as he sees the shark come back out of the water. So we got more barrels. Hooper gets caught in a rope. 3 barrels total as they're attaching barrels to Bruce. And the 3 barrels come at the boat and go under the boat. And the shark disappears. And they're not sure what's going on. They're not sure where it's at. And they feel a bump at the bottom of the boat. And out comes Bruce to chase back after them. And now the chase is on, and Quint actually says, he's chasing us. So Quint goes all Ahab and tries to kill the engines by leading the shark to shore. Figures the best way to give them an advantage is to get the shark to where it has less ability to go underneath the boat, and they have more ability to see it from where the barrels are. So he's speeding towards shore, and as the water's popping up underneath, Quint grabs the life jackets and hands them to Brody and Hooper. Oh, I'm sorry. He kills the engines in his zeal for getting to the shore, and that's where he grabs the 2 life jackets. Gives one to Brody, gives one to Hooper, and obviously, because he's been through this before with the USS Indianapolis, he will not put a life jacket on. So now they have no engine. They're still far from shore, and the only thing that they can do is try to attack it with the weaponry they have. Hooper suggests, well, I've got my shark cage, and I've got this needle that I can inject it with. The shark when it comes at the cage. Why don't I do that? So Quint says he's an idiot, but says I don't have anything else I could do, so why not? Whatever, we'll throw you in the water. So the shark cage gets pulled out, and in goes Hooper. Now all these scenes are special to the movie for the main reason who filmed it and how it was filmed and what was being filmed. Jen, do you have something to say about this?
Yeah, all of the underwater footage for this scene, like that show an actual white shark, were filmed in Australia by Ron and Valerie Taylor, who are well-renowned shark experts and photographers. She's still, I think she's in her 80s and still dives with sharks. They just did a documentary, I think, last year on Shark Week with her. But they wanted to use real sharks to show, and they used a miniature cage with a dwarf in there for scale, so it looks like a much bigger shark in comparison. At first they had like a dummy in there, but it didn't move. It was just, you could tell it was not working. So they put in this little guy. Well, a white shark actually got caught between the top of the cage and the boat. And so when it is thrashing around, that real shark, that did happen. And the little guy was so scared he wouldn't go back in the cage. So that's why they had Hooper go out after losing his thing, going to the bottom. So when you see that shark like thrashing in the cage, that actually did happen. And they kept it in the movie because it was just such a thrilling scene. But they couldn't get the guy to go back in the cage. He was like, "Oh no, So when they filmed him up close, that was actually filmed later with with somebody else. It's not Dreyfuss when they show like the up close scene where he's screaming and you just see the goggles. That's not Dreyfuss. But I thought it was pretty interesting.
Yeah, the fact it was a real shark, and now this also comes to play in how the shark cage gets destroyed, since, like you said, it got caught in the cage, literally destroyed the cage. So they kept that all in, and
the script
in the movie, yeah, they wrote it into the script, and in the movie, the winch breaks and the cage drops down, and they have to quick jury rig up a way to bring the cage back up. So they bring the cage back up, and the cage is destroyed. There is no sign of Hooper in it whatsoever. Now, in the book, that's where Hooper bought it. He wanted a picture of it first, and when he was getting a picture, he was trying to focus the camera and wasn't focusing it fast enough and didn't pay attention to the fact he should have been using his shotgun dart. Basically, it was a pole that when you jab the the end into whatever you want to hit, it shoots a shotgun shell directly into it. So he was going to be aiming for the brain, but instead was taking pictures and ended up the cage ended up getting bashed into. He lost his breath, dropped the stuff that he was holding on to. The shark comes back around, bashes into it again, and this time the cage is wide open, and the third, I think it was the third hit, the shark bit into him, and Hooper was no more. It was kind of an anticlimactic ending for Hooper, I thought. It was just, boom, he's dead.
Yeah.
So in the book, they weren't staying out all night. They were going back and forth to shore and coming back the next morning. Quint wasn't up for 24-hour shark duty. So after Hooper dies, Brody and Quint both decide they're going to go out the next day, and they're going to make sure to get the shark to finally kill it. So in the movie, the shark, after you see the cage is destroyed, the shark actually jumps up onto the back of the boat, which is already sinking, and knocks the bottom of the boat into the water further. And Quint loses his footing, falls to the ground, tries to grab for something, gets his hand crushed by the air tank that's still in the boat, and starts sliding toward the shark. Brody grabs down for him, sort of loses his grip, and Quint goes directly towards the shark's teeth. Gets his feet up there, tries to fight a little bit, gets the machete that he had dropped earlier nearby, and he starts whacking at the shark. No good. Ends up getting his whole bottom half, chomped into, and pieces of Quint are everywhere. So Bruce drops back off the back of the boat, and as the boat is sinking, it smashes into the windows of the cabin of the boat, and trying to get at Brody. Brody grabs the air tank, smashes Bruce a couple times in the face, gets it basically stuck in his mouth to the point where the shark just has it stuck in its mouth and grabs it away and slinks back into the water. So the boat now sinking very fast. You have only a couple of weapons left for Brody, which is a harpoon and the M1 rifle. So with the harpoon, he gets out onto the deck, tries to get up into the crow's nest as the boat is starting to sink, and it's sinking fast enough that just a couple of jabs with the harpoon on the shark's nose, he ends up losing the harpoon, but by the time he loses the harpoon, almost the entire crow's nest is in the water. So he's got the M1, and he's takes aim, and then another iconic line. What is it, Jen?
Smile, you son of a bitch.
Smile, you son of a bitch. And boom! Spectacularly bloody scene of the shark getting destroyed. I thought that was a pretty cool explosion. What about you, Dad? What'd you think of it?
Enough big parts that you knew that it was a big fish.
And then Jen's favorite part is you want to say it?
The beautiful shot of the red water, and then you just see the dorsal fin just slowly sinking to the bottom of the ocean. Just really, really well shot. And,
All right. So of course you have Brody cheering, "Yay, boo!" And then Hooper surfaces from underneath after seeing the shark explode, and they laugh. Hooper finds out that Quint didn't make it, and sort of, okay, well, they end up looking around for something to use to swim to shore, and Brody points out the barrels and says, "Can we use those?" And Hooper says, "Sure, let's try that." So they start swimming to shore using the barrels, and the very last line from Brody's character is, "I used to hate the water," and he laughs along with Hooper. And what was Hooper's reply, Jen?
gee, I can't imagine why.
In the end. So there we go. In the book, Quint also doesn't make it, but in this case, he gets his leg caught up in one of the barrel rope um, ropes and gets pulled overboard and brought underneath. And they had done enough damage this time, the last time they were out, to the shark, that it was pretty anticlimactic for the book, which was Brody thinks he's going to die, closes his eyes, holding on to one of the flotation devices as the shark is coming up on him, and then he closes his eyes and nothing happens. He opens his eyes and realizes the shark is dead, finally, from all of its wounds, and starts sinking into the water. And Brody looks down into the water and sees it dropping into the depths, and halfway between where the shark ends up stopping and where the barrels are holding the top of the rope is Quint, sort of strung out and floating in the midst of the darkness. So that was the end of the book. So there we go. We have the book and the movie. Any final thoughts while I finish the shark?
Well, it's kind of mystified when they said it in that last scene. It's Tuesday. I tried my dangest to look back in the book and find out what it said. What was being eaten in town on Tuesday? We just know that it was hamburger on Thursday. So I was trying to figure out whether that had something to do. Well, it's Tuesday. Of course, it's got to be Tuesday. But I couldn't figure out why.
Yeah.
But as much as terrible stuff they went through, they still could kick pretty lively going toward shore.
Yeah.
Time
All
to
that
get
blood
to
in the water. I'd be probably swimming pretty fast too.
time to get the hell out of here.
Yeah, there is
Yeah.
that.
And he still didn't like the water, but there was a scene on the boat when him and Hooper were, looking for the shark at night. And Hooper was saying, that he's from a wealthy family and, he's got a lot of money. And they're like, it doesn't make any sense. They pay somebody like you to watch sharks. And he says, well, it doesn't make any sense for somebody that hates the water to live on an island. It's only an island
Yeah.
if you look at it from the water. He's like, yeah, that makes sense.
Yep.
I'm trying. I'm trying to finish it. Let's see. Went a little bit longer than we were expecting.
I was say, this is past my bedtime.
2.5 hours. 2.5 hours. Almost
It's
done.
pretty short
Yeah, it is pretty short for a
for
Bricks and
one of
Flicks.
your. Yeah.
Almost 3 barrels worth.
I've eaten 2 bags of gummy sharks and drank some blue water.
Was it blue water or was it?
No, it was blue curacao and Malibu with some ginger ale. And then I did a shot of grenadine in it for the blood.
Nice.
So, my own version of the shark attack with a splash of Jameson. What flavor?
So you're still trying to find Tuesday?
What's that?
Are you still trying to find Tuesday?
What do you mean?
I'm just wondering what you're looking for. So
I'm finishing the shark. I'm
He's-
sorry. You don't have that.
Yeah, we can't see the camera, but he's building the Lego shark.
Yes.
So I'll show you the finish in just a second. Almost done.
Finishing up the.
So to me, I have to go back to the book and look and find out why they mentioned Tuesday in the movie. It was
Yeah.
because it was so gross about Thursday being hamburger right after the kid had been on the raft had been chewed up.
Yeah. Maybe it was all you can eat fish.
All right. So
Yeah.
for the camera, we got pretty cool articulated shark. Not a bad articulation at all for the shark. And I will be able to
Can't
show.
see it.
Yep, I'll show you in just a second. So, not too bad. And then, so it's got a nice little mouth.
Wow. Yep.
And it actually moves back and forth.
Oh, that's cute.
Huh.
Its tail.
And I don't know if we mentioned that you kept calling the shark Bruce. That if people don't know that Spielberg nicknamed it Bruce after his lawyer,
Yeah.
his real life lawyer. And then after a while, when shark wasn't working, he just called it the Great White Turd because it just wasn't working at all. But
So we got Quint, and I'll show you guys Quint in a second. And Hooper. Come on. Camera is not focusing. It does not want to focus. I'm not sure why. So here's Quint
adorable.
and Hooper. Glasses and beard and everything. And then Brody with his cup of chum.
Very cute.
All right. Anyway,
I don't know if you can see, but I have been wearing my Jaws shirt.
and you've got your Jaws poster behind you. And stuffed Jawses. You've got 2 of them, actually. One's right on the other side of the Jaws poster, too.
This is my little pillow. I got a pillow shark.
That's the one the cat keeps dragging around.
Yeah. And my socks even have their sharks with little snorkels.
Ah.
Nice.
I like sharks.
All right. Well, this was our contribution to Shark Week with
2022.
my dad, Dizzy Thinque, and my wife, Jen. And I am Theron. I appreciate y'all hanging out with us. And if you like the content, hit the like button. If you want to see more of it, hit the subscribe. If you want to know when that stuff's happening, hit the bell. And we'll get you another episode as soon as possible. Not sure what I'm going to do next, but we're having a lot of fun with this, so we're just going to keep it going. You guys have anything to say other than say goodbye? All right.
No.
Say goodbye.
Right.
Bye. Thank you.
All right. Take care.